Hello guys, this is Real Recaps. In this video, I will talk about a 2024 American comedy drama film, Anora. Before we start, I hope you will like and subscribe to the channel. At a gentleman's club, Annie works as a dancer and builds relationships with her clients. However, trouble arises when Diamond finds out one of her regular customers opted for Annie instead, leaving her upset. Despite this, Annie maintains good relationships with her fellow dancers, including Lulu. One evening, their manager, Jimmy, calls Annie over, explaining that a client is looking for someone fluent in Russian. Jimmy introduces Annie to Ivan, who is immediately captivated by her. Ivan reveals that he is visiting America on vacation, so Annie takes him to the VIP room for a performance. The two spend the entire night together, with Annie charming Ivan completely. After her shift ends the following morning, Annie sheds her glamorous persona and returns home to the modest apartment she shares with her sister. Later that day, Ivan texts Annie, inviting her to his home. Annie is amazed by his luxurious residence, and Ivan eagerly takes her to the bedroom for private services. Following their encounter, they converse, and Annie learns Ivan is the son of a wealthy Russian oligarch. Thrilled by the prospect of having a wealthy client, Annie shares the news with Lulu, but Diamond overhears and grows even more envious. The next day, Annie continues spending time with Ivan at his home, and he even invites her to a New Year's Eve party. On the evening of the celebration, Annie brings Lulu along. The party gets wild as the countdown to midnight concludes, and afterward, Ivan asks for Annie's services to end the night. Annie stays over at his place and wakes up late the following afternoon, rushing to leave for work. Ivan, not wanting her to go, offers her $15,000 to be his exclusive girlfriend for the week, allowing her to skip work. Tempted by the offer, Annie requests time off from Jimmy, but he points out she already has the holiday off. Frustrated, Annie argues about her low pay and leaves. The following morning, Annie moves into Ivan's house, spends another night with him, and meets his friends the next day. She continues playing the role of his girlfriend, accompanying him throughout the day and satisfying him at night. On one outing, they visit a candy shop run by Ivan's friends, Tom and Crystal, and later head to the beach to have fun. Annie enjoys the luxurious lifestyle with Ivan and even joins him and his friends on a spontaneous trip to Las Vegas. The group indulges in partying at a private suite, gambling, and enjoying the lavish amenities. At night, Annie teaches Ivan ways to enhance their time together, deepening his attachment to her. However, their week together is nearing its end, and Ivan must soon return to Russia to work for his father, a responsibility he dreads. Half-jokingly, Ivan mentions marrying an American to avoid going back. The idea becomes serious, and Ivan proposes to Annie. Initially laughing it off, Annie realizes his sincerity and agrees. They rush to the little white chapel, getting married on the spot. Following their wedding, Annie quits her job at the club. Her co-workers congratulate her, though Diamond cynically predicts the marriage won't last more than 2 weeks. The next day, Ivan buys Annie a wedding ring and a new coat, and the couple enjoys their time together, growing closer. Meanwhile, Ivan's parents learn about his marriage and inform his godfather, Toros, a priest living in America. Toros instructs his associate Garnick to locate Ivan and address the situation. Garnick and his partner Igor track Ivan to his home. When Ivan sees them at the door, he refuses to let them in. Garnick overrides the locks, leading Ivan to physically block their entry. Alarmed, Annie offers to call the police, but Ivan insists he has everything under control. Garnick confronts Ivan about marrying a hired woman, which shocks Annie. Ivan is too preoccupied to explain, eventually allowing the men inside to verify their marriage license. Ivan retrieves the document while Igor watches over Annie. Garnick sends proof of the license to Toros, who, upon receiving it during a baptism ceremony, excuses himself to take action. Toros contacts Ivan's mother and informs her about the marriage, promising to handle the situation. He demands that Ivan and Annie annul their marriage. Ivan becomes uncharacteristically quiet, leaving Annie to defend their relationship. Overwhelmed, Ivan abruptly urges Annie to leave with him, but she hesitates to gather her belongings. Ivan leaves without her, and Garnick chases after him while Igor restrains Annie. Annie fights back, leading Igor to tie her down. Garnick returns and is shocked by the scene but releases Annie despite Igor's protests. Annie attempts to escape multiple times, injuring Garnick and Igor in the process. Toros arrives to find chaos in the house and learns Ivan has fled. He orders Annie's release but scolds her for her defiance. Toros accuses Annie of manipulating Ivan, offering her $10,000 to cooperate with an annulment. He belittles Ivan, portraying him as an immature man who only married Annie for a green card. Annie, however, remains loyal, even claiming she might be pregnant with Ivan's child. Toros dismisses her claim, revealing the house and possessions belong to Ivan's parents. After a heated confrontation, Toros agrees to let Annie contact Ivan under strict conditions. Scared and conflicted, Annie complies, washing up and preparing to assist in the search for her husband. However, she grows furious when forced to sit near Igor, who restrained her earlier. As they navigate through the city, Igor makes a hesitant attempt to apologize to Annie for his earlier actions, but she remains unwilling to accept his apology. Their first stop is the candy shop, where Crystal and Tom inform them that they haven't seen Ivan nor heard from him. Toros intervenes, urging the couple to call Ivan. However, their skepticism about the group's intentions leads them to refuse. When persuasion fails, Toros orders Igor to start wrecking the shop, which frightens Crystal into calling Ivan, though the call also goes to voicemail. Annie suggests another lead, asking if Ivan might be with another friend. The group is directed to Alex, who works at a restaurant. Annie inquires about Ivan's whereabouts, but Alex hasn't seen him either. They then borrow Alex's phone to try calling Ivan, only to be met with voicemail again. Shifting tactics, Toros shows Ivan's picture to the restaurant patrons, hoping someone has seen him, but the effort yields no results, prompting them to move on. While walking back to the car, Igor notices Annie shivering and offers her the scarf previously used to gag her. Initially suspicious of his gesture, she ultimately accepts it for warmth. When the group reaches the car, Toros is horrified to find it being towed. Desperate, he offers the tow truck driver money to release the car, but when that fails, he resorts to forcibly detaching the vehicle from the truck and hurriedly orders everyone to get in before speeding away. Their search continues across various locations, with no success. By nightfall, Garnick, still nursing a headache from Annie's earlier attack, becomes sick in the car, forcing Toros to clean the mess, leaving the vehicle with an unpleasant smell. They eventually hear that Ivan was spotted at a club but has already left. Unknown to them, Ivan has just arrived at Annie's former workplace, much to Diamond's delight. Seeing an opportunity, Diamond prepares to seduce him, alarming Lulu. Meanwhile, the group pauses for dinner, with Toros growing increasingly anxious about their inability to locate Ivan. During the meal, Annie receives a text from Lulu, revealing Ivan's location. They rush to the club just as Diamond convinces Ivan to accompany her to the VIP room. Toros and Annie barge in, with Annie furiously confronting Diamond for performing for her husband. Toros scolds Ivan, while Annie tearfully pleads with her husband for an explanation, recounting the hardships she endured after he abandoned her. She begs him to stand up for their marriage and stop the annulment that Toros is forcing on them. However, Ivan, too intoxicated to comprehend, dismisses her concerns. Fed up, Toros drags Ivan out of the club, while Annie continues pleading with her husband. Diamond seizes the opportunity to taunt Annie, claiming she was right about the marriage being a sham. Infuriated, Annie punches Diamond, sparking a fight that ends only when Igor physically removes Annie from the scene. Back in the car, Annie argues with Toros, insisting Ivan isn't in the right state of mind to make any decisions. Toros dismisses her concerns and takes them to City Hall to finalize the annulment. They park outside and wait until morning. Annie attempts to reason with Ivan again, but he remains incoherent. When Michael, Ivan's father's attorney, arrives, Annie tries to point out Ivan's intoxication. Despite her objections, the group proceeds to the courtroom. Annie argues with the judge, asserting their marriage is valid and cannot be annulled due to Ivan's condition. Michael is taken aback, realizing they cannot legally annul a marriage from another state. The judge dismisses the case, leaving Toros in a panic. Determined, Toros decides they must meet with Ivan's parents to explain the situation. Annie reluctantly agrees, hoping to prove their love is genuine. At the airport, Annie attempts to make a positive impression on Ivan's parents, Galina and Nikolai. However, Galina coldly dismisses her and focuses solely on her son. Galina accuses Annie of not truly being part of their family and insists Ivan isn't in love with her. Learning they need to return to Nevada for the annulment, the parents hastily usher everyone onto their private plane. Annie pleads with Ivan to refuse the annulment, but he cruelly confirms their decision, mocking her for believing their relationship was real. During the flight, Ivan's parents reprimand him, and the family argues. Annie, feeling humiliated, snaps back at Ivan when he dismisses her as merely a hired woman. Igor, sympathetic to Annie's plight, offers her a drink. Once in Nevada, Galina pressures the couple to sign the annulment papers. Annie hesitates, hoping Ivan will defend her, but he looks away. Heartbroken, she signs the papers, finalizing the annulment. Galina mocks Annie's status, prompting Annie to retaliate by pointing out that Ivan despises his parents enough to marry her out of spite. Returning Ivan's scarf and coat, Annie storms out. Toros orders Igor to escort Annie back to the family's house for the night before ensuring she leaves in the morning. During the flight back, Igor shows Annie compassion by covering her with his jacket. Once at the house, Annie vents her emotions, crying in the shower. Igor tries to comfort her, complimenting her real name, Anora. Annie, still bitter, mocks him, though Igor insists she's better off without Ivan's family. Despite his kindness, she remains distrustful of him. In the morning, Igor drives Annie to the bank to confirm her payment before taking her home. Before leaving, he returns her wedding ring, revealing he had stolen it from Toros. Touched yet wary, Annie decides not to owe him anything and offers herself to him. However, as the moment turns tender, Annie breaks down, realizing Igor showed her more care than Ivan ever did. Overcome with grief, Annie cries in Igor's arms, mourning the loss of her dream and the harsh truth about her relationship. The end. Thanks for watching.